You know, it'd be very helpful. What would be very helpful is if I actually put a microphone on. But hey, I remember this time. Hey, good Monday morning, everybody. Meteorologist Greg Majeski back with you here on the Weather Nerds YouTube channel. Hope you guys had a great weekend out there. Ready for the new week ahead? We're going to talk about some things. We're going to talk about a coastal system we may have to watch on the East Coast. We got a brief cool down coming across the country, but still going to see this persistent warmth in the middle of the country. We got a hurricane that may make its moisture feed back into the southwest United States. We got to watch Priscilla. And then we got to talk about this potential major pattern change toward the middle of the month. European model over the weekend seems to be locking in on the weekend of the 18th of a significant cool down coming across, where the coldest air of the season coming down. And we'll talk about that as well. Now, before we get into all of that, if you are new here to the channel, you just come across this guy, like, who is this guy? Well, I'm a no-nonsense weather guy. I don't like hyping stuff to death. I don't treat every storm as the storm of the century. My motto here is real simple: to keep you prepared and not scared. And if you like that approach and you like to get that straight forward weather information, please consider subscribing to the channel. I do appreciate you guys helping us out. All right, let's go ahead and talk about yesterday's highs. Hey, we finally got one where we didn't get triple digits. How about this? We got 99 down there in the Rio Grande Village down there in Texas. We'll take that. Look at that right there. And then 15 out here in Bonanza, Utah. That's where were our extremes yesterday. Let me get myself out of studio mode here. So again, not looking bad. We got a little cold front there in the middle of the country. I've seen some rains there approaching right around the St. Louis area. We'll be tracking that here shortly for you. But otherwise, that's not really big major storm systems right now. The jet stream pattern's just not really supporting that right now. So let's look at the weather map here. Again, there's that frontal system. Bring us some cool air. We are getting a little bit of the cool air kind of coming in here finally. You can kind of see that right through here. Kind of coming right through there. You see it kind of coming on down there. Look, they got some 20s and 30s in here a little bit. So a brief cool down we're getting a little bit, but again, this is going to be quick hit and run. That's what we can call this, hit and run action there. Definitely looking unsettled there across the southeast. Still dealing with that as well, as we're dealing with some unsettled weather, warm weather down here. And not bad out here on the west coast. It's definitely quieted down a bit there out west as well. Let's talk about some of this rain coming into, getting close to the St. Louis area. There's some of that rain right there. Here's St. Louis. They got some rain stretching back here, coming in through Kansas, going to be coming into Missouri. So maybe a little bit wet morning for you folks there in the middle of the country. As we look at the big picture across the nation, well, you can see some of those colder temperatures out here. Yeah, you can see, look at some of the freeze warnings out here. Starting to see some of that up here. But I'll tell you, if that big cool dump comes down going into this upcoming weekend, but the following weekend, I think we'll see a lot more of those here coming up on the horizon if it comes true. What's been happening on this is both the GFS and European have been hinting at this, but they've been kind of shifting the goalpost to the right. And I've been kind of reluctant to really kind of jump all on it. But over the weekend, the Europeans seem to be locking in a little bit better on that weekend ahead. So still subject to change because it's so far off. All right, let's go take a look out in the tropics real quick. We got a couple things to talk about out there. This is Invest 95L. It is probably going to become Jerry as it's getting a little bit better organized. But as we've seen with the previous storms with Aaron and Gabrielle and Umberto and everything else, it looks like we're going to continue this trend where this thing's going to get caught up with this persistent weakness that we've had kind of off the eastern seaboard. Is going to pick this thing up and take it out. So at least that's the way the global models are trending right now. Once it gets a low-level circulation locked in, we will see if that changes. Right now, I'm not expecting to be too much of a problem. Now, as we go into October, I start paying attention to the Western Caribbean. I pay attention to the Gulf. There's some very warm waters out there right now. But for right now, it is staying clear. Here's your satellite imagery right there. As you can kind of see, it's clear out there and not looking too bad. There are a little bit of storms there near the Central American area. Look at this. Here's some more Saharan dust. We were clear there for a little while, but there's some more dust coming out. Very unusual, folks, to see that Saharan dust that's been persistent all hurricane season long. The reason why we have not seen a significant spike in storms this year is because that Saharan dust is an inhibitor of the tropical waves in a very, very big fashion most of the season. Now, that's been an inhibitor for sure, and you got the dust on the northern periphery of Invest 95L right there. There's another tropical disturbance there, but that one's not expected to do anything. And of course, you can see right there on the edge of the screen here on the Pacific, which we're going to talk about, there is Priscilla right there. All right, so let's talk about the model data. Let's look at this. Again, this is the ECENS, the European model. It's my preferred ensemble model here. as we're kind of looking at some things here. Let this thing loop back through here again. Let it reset. There's a 10-day loop. So again, you're going to watch what is going to become Jerry, and it's going to make that turn. Notice we start to see some weakness here, and we start watching down here. This starts to make the turn. This pulls on out. There is, it looks like, some low that's going to form off the coast of the Carolinas coming up, going into the weekend, but I don't think it's going to be a tropical. I think it's going to be extratropical or just a low there in nature. But for right now, it looks like this is going to stay offshore with this. So no imminent tropical development here coming. And if we finish out 2025 without a landfalling storm of any kind across the continental United States, that'll be the first time since 2015. So it's been a long time since we've seen that. All right. So we're on the downhill side of the season right now. We're kind of sitting, getting probably right in this window right in here, kind of sitting right in there. So we're kind of heading downward here. So we still got some season ahead of us, and we'll see how it works out. Now, as far as the Pacific is concerned, we got to watch Priscilla. It is going to be drawn north and into the southwest portion of the United States. Could become a flooding problem. We'll show you the models on that here in a second. Octave is going to stay offshore, and then we got another area disturbed weather behind Priscilla to see if that's going to become something. Here is the satellite imagery there, as there's our hurricane spinning about right there. Not moving all that fast. It's going to take it a while before it kind of works up to the north there. And becomes a problem for you folks potentially there into the southwest portion of the United States. Now, as we go ahead and take a look at the thunderstorm threat here for today, one thing we're going to see here for the next 3 days is we're not expecting any organized severe weather. You can see the general thunderstorm threat here in the middle of the country, thanks to that cold front that's moving off there. And that'll move into the northeast, but we don't have any severe weather. This is always subject to change. We could see a marginal one potentially get popped up, but for right now, not seeing it here. Going into Tuesday, this is your Tuesday outlook, and here is Wednesday, as that front side's off to the east there, going into Wednesday. So this will continue for the mid-Atlantic, the southeast, and going back into portions of the southwest. What about the heavy rain threat? We do have that. That's been going on. We've had some heavy rains there across Louisiana. The middle of the country is looking like they'll have some problems there as well. So let me go look at your excessive rainfall. Hold on, where'd you go here? Hold on 1 second. They moved it on me. What did they do? Oh, here it is. There, just looking right past it. Okay, here we go. So here we go, right here in the middle of the country. Again, that yellow area there, that's 15% there from Louisville, stretching back toward Memphis, right there where the front. You might see some localized flooding, some heavy rainfall amounts in there. When I show you the rainfall amounts, you'll see why that's an area of concern right there. And then again, that's for today, going into tomorrow morning. And then this shifts into the Midwest area. So we're talking about southern Indiana, big portion of Kentucky, parts of northern Tennessee, getting to West Virginia. This will be for Tuesday for the heavy rain threat there. And then going for day 3, we start to back off just a little bit out here into the southwest portion of the United States. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the model data. Let's talk about the beans and bullets. Let's get this thing going here. We'll go ahead and talk about that. Let's look at your NAM. We're looking at the latest 6Z run here coming in as we're tracking that storm system across the country. As this thing moves on, there'll be some heavy rain, some of this moisture kind of tag teaming in here in the middle of the country right there and bringing that heavy rain threat as this front moves off toward the east. We can see some moisture coming up there and still not quite seeing our storm yet. Again, that thing's going to be very slow to move up to the north. European, this again only goes about 60 hours. So this goes out until Wednesday afternoon, but you can see that rain there across the portions of the Mid-South, kind of going into the Ohio River Valley. And then we see our front here kind of clearing the east coast here going into Wednesday afternoon as that cool air moves in back off toward the east. Definitely a hit and run with this cool down here. So here is your temperature forecast loop here. You kind of see that front moving off to the east. You see there, but a quick warm up in the back side of this. There's the cold front. As you can see it kind of moving off there toward the east there as it's cooling temperatures down. But we're going to see a big warm up on the back side of this thing once it goes on by. So quick hit and run with this initial cool down. And then we'll see if we get that significant pattern change to take place later going in toward, say, the 18th, okay? Now, here's the heavy rain set. This is the 60-hour one here, the NAM. Again, where we got that, remember where we showed you where that excessive rain threat was? Arkansas, Missouri, parts of Indiana. We're seeing some pretty heavy rain possibilities in here. Here's one that shows up 8 inches here. So a little bit of training with some of this rain going over the same ground. You're looking at some heavy rain threats there. Alabama, Georgia. I know I got a lot of Georgia viewers here. Not looking at a lot of rain here. I'm sorry about that for you guys down there. I know we've been drought conditions there. Some decent rains across the Northeast coming in here going through Wednesday as that front begins to clear. and the West Coast stays dry here through Wednesday afternoon. Now let's talk about that pattern change. All right, we'll talk about that. Again, here's the European model here on this. Again, it's coming to the tail of the run. Here's that big dump coming on down in there. Okay, that's been kind of showing that all weekend. All right, so again, as we go look at this, there's our initial cool down. This is that front here coming in here. This is going to bring our initial kind of hit and run cool down here in the east. But notice the big warm up. We're already got the big ridging here in the middle of this already on the back side of that. So the brief cool down for today, it's going to warm up again in the middle of the country again as this moves on out. You see this trough, this low kind of lingering off the west coast there. And it kind of tags in. It kind of beats that ridge down there. So I know you folks in the middle of the country are tired of this. And then we get this ridging here across the southeast going into the 15th. So we're looking at probably some above normal temperatures here in the southeast in response to this. Look at this big ridge out here in the west starts to build. Now, if this thing starts to build as advertised, we're gonna dump this down. We're gonna bring that cold air down here as we go past the 15th of the month. All right. So as this thing goes on by, here's the dump. Boom. Gonna bring it on down. Going into the 18th. And the GFS is a little slower with this, but I do prefer the European model as this comes on down. And this will be some of the coolest temperatures of the season. A lot of first frost with this, a lot of first freezes potentially with this as this comes on and moves on and flattens on out. But I think this would be a significant pattern change because we've had the persistent ridge in the middle of the country for weeks now. And this would be a major pattern change should this take place here as we go toward, say, the 18th of the month. All right, so looking again at the 7-day here is look at the European. The one thing I want to focus in on here is what happens to this moisture from our hurricane goes up here, what's left of it coming into California and into Arizona. So this is going in. Oop, let me turn my timestamp back on. My bad. Turn that back on for you there. This is going into for Friday. So as we go toward the end of the week, we'll have to watch this. This upper low, that low out the coast is going to pull this up like a magnet, and this could be a flooding issue down here. We also got to watch what goes on off the eastern seaboard here as that initial front begins to clear. Okay, so as that front clears off the eastern seaboard there, it looks like we're gonna spin something up there off the southeast coast. There it goes right there. I don't expect this to be tropical. This is going to be just a surface low. A lot of wind shear with this thing, so it could be a bit stormy there along the Outer Banks going into this upcoming weekend as this thing pulls up to the north. But it'll definitely drive the cool air here across the south. And then we'll see our next system here, seeing some snows out there in the west a little bit for going into this upcoming weekend. So this goes up the weekend, it kind of falls apart, brings some rains to the mid-Atlantic and into the northeast going into this upcoming weekend as we watch for that next storm system. All right. So again, rainfall totals here. I mean, look at your temperatures here. Again, I'm sorry, this thing's going to be a real big pain. As I said, we got this nice cool down here. Look at the plains there. You're seeing 40s and 50s and daytime highs in the 60s. That's a little bit better than 80s, but that's going to be brief, guys. We're going to see that kind of come back at us here again as we go 2 o'clock. Then we're back in the 70s by Thursday, and then going into Friday again. Friday afternoon, we start to see the 80s starting to creep back in here across the middle of the country. So it's warming up, but then there's that cool spot here in the southeast. Obviously, we got the nice little cool down here, as that little quick hit and run coming in for the weekend before we see things warm right back up here going into next week. And there it is nice and cool there across the east going into Sunday morning too. But look at it. Look at this. We've already got temperatures here. In Sunday morning, we're already back into the upper 60s here across Kansas. I mean, already in the 70s. I mean, just this unbelievable, this warmth that keeps coming in the middle of the country there. And then this thing, and look at Sunday afternoon. We got 81 in South Dakota in the middle of October. That's just unbelievable. Now, we are cold out here in the Intermountain. You got some 20s and 30s out here, but we're going to warm right back up here in the middle of the country until we get that big next storm system to kind of pull off, and most of the east here is going to look at above normal temperatures. Now, as I wrap this up and look at the Climate Prediction Center forecast, one thing I do want to point out is the Climate Center is waiting for model continuity. I've been starting to see it over the weekend. Now, look at this unbelievable warmth here in the middle of the country here. This is going out from the 11th through the 15th, and very cool out here in the west. Hey, thank you, Julia Taylor. Thank you for the donation. I do appreciate that. Again, cooler out here on the west coast. Now, as I go forward on this, watch what happens as I go to the 8th and 14th. No big change here. This goes up to the 19th. Now, what I just showed you is the European was showing the 18th. The GFS is a little slower. If the 12Z run comes in today and it's still showing that big dump coming down, I think this map will start to show some subtle changes. Maybe we start seeing the cool down coming in the east. But again, we got to look for model continuity, run to run, day to day, especially that far out. It's like a set of dominoes. We got to see how it lines up. Now, the bad news on this here in the east, we got a lot of drought that's been building up here across the east. That looks like that's going to continue in the next week. This goes from the 11th to the 15th. We're definitely wet out there in the west. Obviously, we got that tropical moisture coming up. The monsoon season hasn't shut off yet out there in the west as we continue to stream some moisture up out of the tropics. And then going out again from the 13th to the 19th, this is also staying dry here. I think this is also subject to change too, because if we get a significant trough there in the east, we will tap some Gulf moisture and maybe bring in some rain there. So we shall see. We shall see on this. So again, folks, it looks like a major pattern change potentially coming at us here. That's the good news as we go toward the end of getting toward the middle of the month, 15th, 18th range, somewhere in there. And that'll be nice to see. I'm kind of tired of the pattern we're kind of in right now. We could definitely use some rain here in the east, but we are in a La Nina season. That's not changing. We're still seeing that out there. I didn't show the sea temperature anomaly, but we're still dealing with this out here. You got the La Nina out here. And when that happens, the southern tier typically is dry and above normal, and that's what we're seeing. We're definitely in a La Nina fall right now. But that La Nina is forecast to weaken as we head toward the winter. And as it does so, then we can see how the overall weather is going to be. I think the winter this year is going to be very topsy-turvy. I think it's going to be winter of extremes across the country. As we've kind of been seeing here in the fall, I think that'll continue into the winter. Again, thank you, Julie. I appreciate you giving the donation. I do appreciate that. Mick, it's good to see you out there this morning. Atlanta girl out there as well. I appreciate you guys out there watching us this morning. And I appreciate you guys helping support the channel. Again, there will be a brand name change coming this month. I'm working on a new logo and stuff for it. It'll be just Majestic Weather here on the Weather Nerds YouTube channel. Just going to try to do a rebrand to kind of stay with my local brand, which is North Georgia Majestic Weather. I figure better to sync them up now and kind of get that going. And I got to start. I'll also start some advertising buys here. Hopefully get that counter moving in the right direction. It's been kind of stuck for a little while. All right, you guys take it easy. I appreciate you. Again, if you have any weather-related questions, please post that down below. I do appreciate it. And you guys take it easy, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. You guys have a safe day. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.